Hello and welcome back to Craft Aquatic. I'm Matt G. In this video, we'll be taking a detailed look at our 5-year-old mixed reefed aquarium. I'll show you how the coral are doing, talk about what has changed since the video I made last year, discuss some topics relating to managing a fully mature reef aquarium. There are a couple of videos I've made over the years about this reef system, which I will link to in the description below. A lot has changed and you'll find additional details in those videos, so check them out if you like. Let's get right to it. There are a number of places I could begin, but I will start by pointing out the obvious. Much has changed with this 5-year-old reef system since last year. We are missing some of the LPS, like the nice colony of Zygoniopora I had in there, and overall the SPS has been trimmed back to make space for new growth and a few new species I've wanted to add. I'll get into more of that throughout the video. Overall, I'm very happy with the direction of this mixed reef. This tank has been set up for 5 years, but I have been a serious reef hobbyist for well over 20, so I understand the growth patterns and needs of especially the SPS coral in the tank. I have a vision for the placement of each coral, understanding what it will look like in context of everything around it, and all of the space will eventually occupy. So at 5 years, what is most important to me is managing growth, but also setting every coral, frag, and colony up in a position to thrive, considering lighting and flow so the entire tank can grow into an aesthetically pleasing reefscape. I tend to think of reef keeping as creating art very slowly with living creatures instead of paint. So I think a good example of that planning is this fox flame and the green anacropora here. I'm leaving lots of space for them to fill the gap above and around them. I like how they complement each other and know both are perfectly capable of thriving at 150 to 200 par and medium flow. I'm also leaving plenty of space for this human Rhodactis to occupy. At 5 years, I find myself being much more patient with negative space, knowing it will be filled and colored in with new growth. This is a 120-gallon reef tank, so a few of the species in here would take that entire volume to show their true growth patterns, but there are a number of coral in here that are capable of reaching an adult shape with limited space, so long as I am not constantly filling each nook and cranny with a never-ending barrage of new frags. I made a 4-year video about this tank last year. In that video, I covered many of the popular hobby and standard names of most of the coral and frags in here. I've linked to that video in the description if you are interested in those specifics, or just ask in the comments below. In this video, I'm rather wanting to share my thoughts and opinions about the requirements and needs of a 5-year-old reef, so hope you don't mind me jumping around and riffing a bit. I have to say, one of the things I appreciate most about having a middle-aged reef like this is having an understanding of how things, at least generally, will react and recover from my stupid mistakes. For instance, I wasn't paying close enough attention to the auto water change system earlier this year. The specific gravity drifted up to 1.027, and I started to notice STN. At this stage, I rarely see any tissue necrosis in the system, so I knew to start investigating immediately. I swapped out the bad pump and knew the coral and fish would recover rapidly. Unfortunately, this is when I lost the ganies and a few chalice. But at this point, many of my SPS are nearly bulletproof, having been in my various systems for 10 years or more. There are a couple areas in this reef where I'm putting down a number of coral. I'm waiting for them to grow a bit and duke it out. I'll keep the ones that thrive and move those that are just surviving down to our second system. In this shot, you can see a family favorite. This is one of the areas that Dottie likes to hang out in this vertical position. We did lose our beloved Nassau Tang Sharky last year. It came on suddenly without warning. It was a very sad week for all of us. This is one of our newer additions, a Springer-Eye Dottie back with so much personality in such a small package. I'm certain our spotted grouper would make a quick meal of him if she could catch him. The current fish seem to all get along just fine as a community. I was a bit concerned I'd throw off that balance 3 months back by removing a couple large boulders of live rock to free up flow. It can affect where the fish feel their territories are, especially when seeking shelter after lights out. But I think opening up that extra space gave them a bit more breathing room, which counteracted any aggression due to loss of shelter. So far, so good. color's been quite good, especially when coral are under the bluer spectrum in the morning and evenings. This is when I really like to look at the tank. I feel I'm at 80% as far as coral pigmentation is concerned. Still plenty of room for improvement. I fixed a slow drip in the plumbing recently and did upgrade the 2 auto water change peristaltic pumps. I've also been consistent with my weekly dose of coral snow in conjunction with various bacterial supplements. I supplement Tropic Marin Trace with my daily alkalinity and calcium dose, and Tropic Marin Part C according to calcium uptake. All these details become increasingly important the older a system gets, especially with the increased bioload of millions of hungry coral polyps. I'm seeing slow progressive improvement in the coral, mainly by sticking to a plan without deviation. So long as I maintain a solid foundation of knowledge in this hobby, I believe it matters less what the plan is than how consistent I am with it. There are a few coral in this 5-year-old reef that I have allowed to grow somewhat excessively. I never get tired of the Space Invader Pectinia. It is a beautiful coral that can be aggressive, but hasn't really posed a problem for me yet. So I'll probably happily let it continue to take over the side of the reef. Like I said before, I'm not opposed to some negative space in the shaded areas so long as it doesn't become some sort of in-tank algae farm. There are some little goodies down here that don't mind the lower light and still have plenty of room to grow. There were some Aptasia down here a month back. The easiest solution was to move my Aptasia filefish from the frag system to this tank. A month later, I can't even find one of them. You sort of miss the depth of any reef in these YouTube videos, so the coral look compressed and visually busy, but there really is quite a bit of space between colonies, with very little coral warfare, at least at the moment. I'll include some top-down footage at the end of the video so you can really see what I'm talking about. For now, let's get into a bit of the equipment that has been upgraded or changed since the last update. No reef tank is simple per se, but I do not believe in overcomplicating anything when it comes to reef keeping. I ran a Reef Keeper 2 for 4 years and it worked really well for me. This year I switched to the Apex controller. I like the remote monitoring I get with the Apex along with a few redundancies, but most of my hardware is already Wi-Fi enabled anyway, so the controller is mainly for additional timer function. I built the cabinet in a fashion where I could access both bulkheads. I recently had to fix a leak in a True Union over leveraging the manifold that led to that bulkhead, which produced a fast drip in the right bulkhead. Unfortunately, it hadn't cracked, it just needed a bit of tightening. I ended up using JB Weld to patch the union rather than replacing the entire manifold. Another update I made was to replace the bulk Reef Supply high-rate peristaltic dosers with these Ecotech Versus. They perform much better, mainly due to the fact they can be calibrated. I also installed these 2 Bluetooth timers / switches that connect to my skimmer and GFO reactor. Currently, I have them set to run for 18 hours a day. I built this battery backup power cabinet because we get frequent blackouts in the area. There is a DIY video about it in the description below if you're interested. I feel having the solid power solution is critical at 5 years. I have too much time and money invested in this tank, not to mention the responsibility for keeping all these little creatures alive. There are a lot of really cool reef-specific details about this cabinet that make it one of the best time investments I've made so far. Here you can see the old battery backup. It worked fine, but the new unit will keep the entire tank running for 36 hours. The ice cap now serves as a convenient shelf for the tank's lighting power supplies. I've been pretty happy with my current lighting solution and custom lighting schedule. I run 2 AI Hydra 64 HDs, 2 48-inch LED power strips, and 2 Sunblaster T5 fixtures. The system provides sufficient light to wrap around all the coral in the system. In the Northeast, it gets very cold in the winter. I found this painter's drop cloth works well to maintain heat and humidity in the canopy, keeping the heaters from running nonstop. This is an aquarium with old school dual corner overflows, which I love. It makes space for all this benthic water filtering life in these built-in cryptic zones. Also, a corner overflow would have saved me from having to drain the entire system if I had needed to replace that bulkhead. The Tunji Care Magnet is another new thing. I can now scrape coral and algae while keeping my hands out of the tank, which is nice. I've gone back to the gyre pump in the upper right corner, replacing that terrible ice cap version that I had before with this Max Spec XF230 I received in a trade. Of course, I'll always have a Piranha float for daily tank wipe downs. I built this cabinet myself, and I have to say it's been quite good. I can access from two sides and the back. It's sturdy while not having too heavy a footprint in our living room. The cabinet is lit with LED strips and fits all our current hardware like a glove. The BRS Space Saver containers contain calcium, alkalinity, and still kalkwasser to maintain pH levels overnight. I'm still experimenting with raising the pH a bit, which hovers around 8.2 during the day and 7.9 at night. I do need to work on the salt creep, but I'm liking the verses all around. Down in the corner is one of those watchdog water alarms, which will be supplemented with an Apex water sensor very soon. Filter socks, skimmer, and auto water changes are my preferred method of nutrient export. This Life Reef skimmer is one of those pieces of kit I can't say enough good things about. It performs incredibly well, requires zero maintenance, really like no maintenance at all, and is very quiet. Only thing I've noticed is the screw on the check valve is rusting, so I'll have to replace that. Here's the ATO tank, which is filled automatically by the RODI, which is on a 2-hour daily timer, and the trusty aqua lifter pump that sadly is no longer available. Someone really needs to bring that back to market. These brackets hold the autotopoff.com float switches. One is for the ATO. The other switch is a high-level sensor connected to the auto water change system's Versas. It's always a good idea to have an emergency shutoff for any infinite input method attached to a giant container of water in your living room. I recently more permanently installed the two fans attached to the back of the canopy. Previously, I had a box fan I'd place on top of the canopy, and during the hotter months, you can see from this perspective just how much random flow there is in this system. I've slowly increased the flow over the years, utilizing a mixture of types and brands of AC and DC circulation pumps. In my opinion, good random flow is just as, if not more, important than proper lighting. I've been keeping alkalinity in the 8.2 range for a number of years, but have noticed the coral are a bit more colorful in the 9.2 range, so I'm now slowly increasing my numbers to 9.0 and 425 for calcium. I hit those numbers dosing around 170 ml of BRS 2 part per day. My nitrates hover anywhere from 5 to 15, and phosphate from 0.02 to 0.07. As I mentioned, I supplement with Trophic Marin Part C per calcium uptake. Part C and Trophic Marin A and K trace elements have become a critical part of maintaining this 5-year-old reef system. I've been using instant ocean salt for the last few years, which is very low in added trace and nearly matches my alkalinity and calcium levels. I prefer adding the additional elements myself anyway, so I can tweak without having to guess what is already included. I plan on doing an ICP test soon. I'd like to establish some sort of baseline and level out some of the nutrients that are on the lower side. In particular, I'm interested in raising these levels to see if I can bring back some struggling Goniopora. Also, how it may affect color and growth in the SPS. There's a bit of hair algae in the system, so whatever I add, I will do it very slowly, starting with quarter doses and moving up from there. Basically, the tank is doing fine, so I'm not interested in doing any major experimentation. Getting toward the end of this video, just wanted to remind you that any information about the system that is missing here is likely in the linked videos in the description. Check those out or leave a comment for me below, and I will definitely answer your question. One thought I'd like to leave you with is it is worth taking a tank to 5 years and beyond, in my opinion. The maturity of a fully established reef system offers increased stability, but still plenty of challenges to keep it interesting. One of the best parts is you spent all this time and money to set up a reef tank, but then finally you can take a bit of a wallet and energy break to simply enjoy the reef in your home. If that's your thing, take your reef to 5 years and beyond, as I plan to do. Thank you for watching Craft Aquatic. Your support really motivates new and interesting videos. There's plenty to check out on the channel, so please do. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.